How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and it's with great excitement that I bring you the conclusion of my 2017 Compound Bow Review Series. If you've been following the series, you know that I have extensively gone over a lot of your flagship bows for this year. I tested their speed. I tested how loud they were using a decibel meter. I did every single reading with the same meters from the same distance from the bow. I measured 3 feet 6 inches from where the meters were located at every location where I did testing to try to keep it as consistent as possible. I shot every bow at 5 grains per pound, an arrow that weighed 5 grains per pound. Virtually all the bows I shot at 70 pounds and 30-inch draw. There were a few exceptions. The Expedition line, they only had them in 65 pounds. So I shot them at 65 pounds, but still 5 grains per pound. So the arrow was a little bit lighter, but overall gave the same kind of a data. Also, the Prime Synergy series, they only had in 29-inch draw, so there was a few variations here and there, but for the most part, they were pretty consistent. So I shot the Expedition lineup, the Hoyt Pro Defiant, Bowtech Range 6 and 7, Matthews Halon, the whole Elite lineup, the PSE Evolve, and as I said, the Prime Synergy. And I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed putting this whole series together. If you want to see all the data on all of the bows, I'll put a link in the description for the whole playlist of each bow. But in this video, I'm just going to give you the final results and the top picks. So first and foremost, I want to go over the 3 fastest bows and the 3 quietest bows, and then I'll give you my overall picks for the year. Oh, I also want to say that if you want a PDF of the summary of all the data I captured this year, for people who are subscribed to my newsletter, I'm going to be putting a link to download the PDF for free in my newsletter. So if you want to get on that, go to my website, seansoutdooradventures.com, and at the bottom of each page there's a little thing for you to be able to subscribe to the newsletter, which I send out periodically, not even that often, but you'll be able to get all the data and you'll be able to look at it for yourself, the speeds of the bows, the noise of the bows, the back wall ratings that I gave, how solid the back wall was, how easy it came off the back wall, and that will help you in making a buying decision. So let's talk about the 3 fastest bows. The absolute fastest bow I shot this year at 5 grains per pound was the Bowtech Range 6. It came in at 347 feet per second, which is really close to their advertised 350 feet per second. There was a tie for second place, and it was the Expedition Excursion 6, which came in at 342 feet per second, and the PSE Evolve 31, which also came in at 342 feet per second. The 3 quietest bows, again at the top of the charts, was the Bowtech Range 6, but let me make a clarification. The fastest speed of the Bowtech Range 6 came in the performance setting. The quietest bow came with the Bowtech Range 6 at the comfort setting. So you had 2 different settings there, but still the quietest bow came in as the Range 6. The second quietest bow was the Hoyt Pro Defiant 34, and that came in at 75 decibels, whereas the Bowtech was 74.5. And then finally, the PSE Evolve 35 came in at 75.4 decibels. So my overall pick for this year, the bow that I think is the best, if you were to call me up today and say, Sean, I've only got money to buy one bow and I want to keep it for a couple years, what bow do you recommend out of all the bows you shot? My answer to that question is, I gotta go with it, hands down, the Bowtech Range 6. Not only was it the fastest and in quietest in the 2 different settings, but the technology in the bow just requires my respect. With the cam shift technology where you can have the performance setting or flip the disc over and have the comfort setting, just impresses me. You also have all the draw length changes right on the cam, so you don't have to get extra modules. If you want to sell the bow in a year or 2 and get a new one, you can reach a much wider audience with that bow because the draw lengths can be adjusted right there, and if you have somebody who wants a little bit of a slower bow with a smoother draw cycle, the comfort setting. If you want someone who just wants speed, you flip it over and you've got pretty much the fastest bow that I tested on the market out of the bows that I tested. Now there are other brands that I tried to get in this review, like Bear, APA Archery, Obsession. I reached out to all these companies and they just didn't get back to me. In the future, I will hope to include them, but I'm limited because they don't all have dealers near me and they weren't willing to work with me to get into the review. So the Bowtech Range 6 is my overall pick for the year, but I want to throw in a stipulation. That's for 30-inch draw and less. I'm a 31-inch draw, so that bow actually doesn't fit me. I personally can't shoot that bow. And so I wanted to have a second category for people who have a draw length longer than 30-inch. What is my top pick? Well, I actually had a little difficulty giving one particular bow because there were so many that were really right on the same level for me. So I just want to give you the bows that, for if you have a beyond 30-inch draw, I want to give you a few bows to focus in on. The one that I put in the first of this list is the PSE Evolve 35. That is an unbiased opinion, even though I'm going to be doing a project with Jory Outdoors this year, who is sponsored by PSE, so I'll most likely be shooting an Evolve. Still, I don't have one right now, and that's not in writing yet, but it's just all in verbal emails and stuff. So that is my unbiased opinion, and here's why I put PSE Evolve, the Evolve 35. Well, for me, I like a longer axle to axle. That's why I said the Evolve 35. But it's a very fast bow. It's a very smooth draw cycle, and again, you have the ability to change the draw length right there on the cam, which to me, I really like. Because if you're someone who likes to tinker around with, you know, how you're doing things, even if you change your anchor point a little bit, you might change the draw length by 1/2 inch, and you might want to be able to adjust for that. Well, having a bow like this, you can adjust the draw length right there on the cam. Other bows, you're kind of stuck. You have to go buy a module. So in the 31-inch draw, I like the PSE Evolve 35. I like the Expedition Excursion 7. That was a very fast bow as well. Very smooth. It's dead in your hand. It's actually, when the bow goes off, there's less vibration in the Expedition than there is in the PSE. So if you're somebody who is looking for that, then you might want to take a look at that, the Expedition Excursion 7. The other two bows that I want to mention in this lineup was the Elite Option 7. Now before I shot Elite, I kind of was gravitating towards certain bows already, and Elite made it hard for me because it's such a nice bow. The only reason why I'm giving the Expedition bow a slight edge over the Elite in this little lineup right here is because with the Expedition you do have at least one yoke system on the top cam, and with the Option 6, or excuse me, the Option 7, actually both bows for Elite, they went with a split limb this year. And you do not have a yoke system, so you cannot manipulate the cam. If you're tuning, you're gonna have to do all the tuning with moving the rest around and things like that. And I just like being able to control the limbs. You have 4 limbs on a double limb bow. You have 2 in the top and 2 in the bottom. And not being able to control those at all, like you can with the Bowtech, the Rain series. If you look at that, there's a yoke system on both limbs, and you can control all the limbs with that. With the Elite, the way they have theirs made, you don't have any of that ability. So that's why it's a great bow. I really enjoyed it, but just when it comes to tuning, I like to be able to have a little more control. For you, that might not be a concern or an issue, but it's, like I said, it's still a great bow, and that's why it's in the top of the list here. And the last bow that's in the top of my list, for those of you who have a longer draw length than 30, it's the Bowtech Range 7. Again, the same technology that the Range 6 has, but you know, in that 31-inch draw, some of these other bows really competed for me. And I will also go back to the Bowtech Range 6 and the Range 7. There is another component to that bow that I really liked. In theory, I haven't had a chance to play around with it, but they have an ability to adjust the draw stop now so that you don't need a bow press to get your stops in time. So if you're on the fly and your draw stop timing goes a little bit out, you can adjust it, and that gives you that solid back wall that most of us prefer. I'll also say that Bowtech did have a known issue with their limbs in the past, with them flaking, sometimes cracking or breaking. And I know for me, I owned one in 2012 and they replaced the limbs for free for me with that particular model. However, I looked closely at the limbs this year. I did hear that they brought in maybe a specialist or something to work on that. And you could tell the finish did look different than they had in the past. And from what I've heard, or not heard actually, is there doesn't seem to be that issue this year. I've checked around with people and store owners and asked around different places, and no one seems to be having a major issue with that this year. So it looks like they have corrected that issue for the most part. One other thing I'll say about Bowtech as a company, I did a video a couple years ago when I did have a Bowtech where I was just doing an archery instruction video, and it had like 100,000 views. It was pretty popular, and they emailed me and say, hey, can we send you one of our t-shirts? Sort of like a thank you for using their bow in the video, I guess. But you know, other companies aren't doing that. I've shot other bows. I've shot Hoyts in a lot of videos. Never heard anything from them. Not to knock them or anything. I'm just saying that's one thing that I really appreciated about Bowtech that, you know, kind of stuck with me. Like, hey, they're out there, they're watching, they're seeing what we're doing, and they're saying thank you in situations like that. So that was pretty cool. Another thing that stood out to me, going back to the Elite, they have a really nice roller system on their cables this year, and that really eliminates the cable wear, which I really like. That's one little, I'd say, drawback with the Expedition bows is they still have, if you look at their cable ride system, it's just a slot on a metal sleeve. And I would prefer it if Expedition went with a roller system similar to what we're seeing on these other bows. The PSE Evolve came out with a nice new roller system, which I really liked. I always hesitated on their cable slide system in the past, but it's a really nice system. So these bows that I've just mentioned are my top picks for the year. If you want to see all the stats on each bow, make sure you watch the full series. If you want the PDF download so that you can sit there and look at all the data as you're making your decision for buying a bow or just to compare bows, just subscribe to my newsletter, and I'll put a link for that PDF in each newsletter that I send out, so that if you miss some of the newsletters and you subscribe later, you're still going to get that this year. So that's my conclusion. That's it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you watching my videos. It means a lot to me. I do my best to provide good information for you. And going into next year, I'm going to make some changes and adjustments to get even more precise. One thing I really am going to get for next year is a portable draw board so that I can really verify the draw length of every bow where I'm at. Because even a 1/4 to a 1/2 of an inch difference in draw length is going to impact speed. So when we're comparing apples to apples, if one bow shows that it's a little bit slower, well, maybe there was a 1/4 inch difference in the draw length the way the bow shop had it set up. And maybe we can get that adjusted before I do the testing to make sure we really are comparing the same exact thing with each bow. So that's one thing I'm excited about for next year, as well as some other things, maybe even looking to get a vibration meter, although they're pretty expensive. If you're willing to contribute to help me get those materials and products, please go to my website, seansoutdooradventures.com. There is a PayPal button on the videos page where you can just click on it, and it's set up in $1 increments. So if you want to donate $1 toward that, you can do that. If you want to donate 20, you just change the quantity to 20, and you will help me get those types of equipment to get good data for you. Thanks so much again for tuning in. Until next time, take care and God bless.